We'll start with you, Martin. Martin, acquisition costs. So the big thing at the moment is that acquiring customers has got very expensive. The last 2 years, there's so many more people in the market now, and acquisition costs has got a lot higher.
Yeah.
Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I've read somewhere that in the last 5 years, acquisition costs have increased something like 60%. I think a lot of that's down to obviously the third-party cookie situation, and also just too much money chasing too few eyeballs. Now, I think traditionally, retailers and multi-channel retailers especially have been very much concentrated on, chasing sales and trying to scale the business. And acquisition costs have been kind of an afterthought, really. But what I'm finding talking to people now is that, the acquisition cost and cost per acquisition is becoming more and more of an issue.
Yeah. You were saying about you've dealt a lot with agencies.
Yeah.
And you went in probably as a novice, and and then now you've dealt with it after a couple of years.
Yeah. All the scares me back.
How do you get the most? How do you get the most out of an agency, and can you end up spending too much on the cost of acquisition?
Well, we've just come out of the last 2 years where, like most online businesses in Ireland, have enjoyed amazing growth throughout the lockdown and the pandemic and everything. But there's a lot of businesses sitting around the board table now, looking at financials and wondering, God, is that all we made, or do we make any money at all? And I think a lot of that's down to they're not being cognizant enough of, sorry,
I think you were saying,
just had a blank here.
It was very interesting. You said to me when you were dealing with an agency, you kept asking them, how much is it what's the cost per order? And it was something like €17.
Yeah, well, you could be sitting and you could get a report from your agency, and they could say, you get a big deck. I'm sure everybody in this room is at the same situation. You get a big deck full of information, but no detail on the cost, and you might have to ask the question 2 or 3 times, and eventually they'll tell you, well, what's 12%?
Yeah.
Well, what's 12%? 12% could be.
So what's the solution? What about repeat customers?
Yeah.
They're much cheaper.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
Yeah. It's all about increasing the lifetime value of the customer, and in terms of getting that acquisition down. And if you acquire a customer for €6, and they come back, then they get a great user experience online. They get a great customer experience. They get the product when they expect to get it. And if there's any customer service issues, it's dealt with very well. That customer will come back to you.
First impression, isn't it?
Absolutely. And hopefully they'll come back to you organically. So straight away, that €6 cost per acquisition goes down to €3.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Paul, what are we going to do about the high cost in Google ads and so on?
Every year it's going up and up. There's not much you can do about it. It's an auction-based platform. So, like any auction, the more competitors, the higher it goes up. And obviously, COVID has seen a huge injection of people advertising the market. But it's about making the money go further now, and about stretching it and working a little bit smarter. And if you're spending that kind of budget money, it's about making sure, are you doing absolutely everything on that website to make sure that we're going to get a conversion here? If you're spending tens of thousands in advertising budget, all it takes is an increase, or a little incremental increase of 1 or 2% in your conversion rate to drastically improve your total return. So costs are always going up. that's one thing. It's about how can we work harder and better on the websites, and using all these great tools, and the messaging apps and chat bots and everything, just to keep them there, to convert better, and that your money will go further,
Okay, good.
Sorry, but can I just come on that?
Yeah.
Like, a lot of it's down to kind of business design as well, and that, if just as I mentioned earlier, the guy sitting around the board table wondering why he didn't make any money. Well, if you're selling a product and the gross margin is €10 and your cost per acquisition is €12, that's a pretty fundamental problem.
Yeah.
And a lot of us around here, we've no control on the margins we can charge, but the only thing we can control really is can optimize the cost per acquisition. And I think going forward, it'll be, we need to ask more from our agencies, we need to ask more from our digital marketing colleagues in terms of, the constraints being imposed upon us should, create more innovation in the industry, really,
Yeah, no, I do think it's definitely two-way street. If you're saying, if businesses come and like, yeah, we just want to advertise all our products, and then you guys maybe like, oh, you don't have a huge margin on some of these projects. We won't. If we know that information, we won't promote those products, if that makes sense. So we use third-party tools that plug into our Google Ads that will set a margin, and it will set a bid based on, right, can we go aggressive on this ad? No, our margin is only 20%. Can we go aggressive on this product? Our margin is 60%. Absolutely, let's go. So it's about being transparent, knowing about your cost or the what you're buying it for, and making sure that you're letting the agencies know so they can work smarter, and get the best possible return out of it.
I 100% agree with that. But again, there's a lot of online retailers out there that, maybe haven't done their homework and aren't able to, that we need to become better acquainted in terms of what the costs, the margins, and all those elements of the business. And being data driven isn't looking at your Google Analytics once a week. Do you know what I mean? It's about being able to have all that cost information and the margin information, and being able to communicate it with you guys in order to create kind of longer term partnerships.
Ciaran, can I throw you into the conversation? What's your view on cost of acquisition going up? What are you doing in mixed garages about that?
I think I echo everything that the fellas are saying here. For the first time after 18 years, we're actually outsourcing our PPC efforts. So we had a good conversation in the lobby about that.
You used to do it in-house?
We did everything in-house, yeah. But the Google's product and the number of different mediums by which customers can consume your ads and your ad text, etc., has just exploded, and we've found it's been a challenge to trying to grab that tiger by the tail constantly in-house relative to resourcing, etc. So we just made the decision quite recently, and we just had our first kick-off call the other day. I think it's going to be really interesting, because I think I would absolutely echo what Martin is saying here, is that you almost need to have a forensic analysis yourself internally within the business relative to the tools and the tactics that are available to you to deploy, so that when you get the report in the door, you can skip straight to the fluff and go straight to the commercials on it. What's your ROAS, what's playing in your various campaigns, and breaking it down, not necessarily to your net percentage margin, but also to your net euro margin as well. You might sell a product for €800, you're taking out 150 quid. On a margin basis, percentage margin basis, that's not so good. But actually, when you look at net side, and so you have to actually become incredibly forensic around sharing. First of all, knowing your business, knowing the commercials across every one of your products, but also making sure that you're sharing that to an agency who potentially doesn't know the 4 different terms for break discs. Yeah. I think you have to have an internal champion that is just not settling back and waiting for that report to come in every week. They actually need to continue to upskill themselves relative, so you can get under the bonnet, and don't wait for the report. Look at it. Look at it every other day. Look at it every day. Look at the account, and play a very active role in how it's going to play. So I'll tell you in 6 months how it plays out.
Very good. So tell us, Ciaran, what about, would you agree that repeat customers are much more, is there a lot of profit in
Listen,
repeat
for
customers?
sure, it has to be. It's all about repeat customers, because if it costs you €6 to acquire that customer, and they order off you 4 times, now that's down to €50, right? And the economics get an awful lot better. So everything around making sure that your customer service is A1, that your feedback is fantastic, that you're getting all orders out the same day, you're getting the right product out the same day, and making sure that you cultivate that. We used Klaviyo as our email comms tool, so that you're segmenting your audience. Who's ordered off you 5 times in the last year, will then give them a dedicated personalized message, and here's a voucher code the 6th time, which gives 20% off, and we're stepping into the personalization route. Everybody's talking about personalization, but it's one of the most difficult things to achieve at volume, but we are moving into that. So we obviously know a lot about our customers relative to what car they drive, and then that's really the focal point by which we try and talk to consumers. And we have a database of about 230,000 on our email database, and we know exact driving details of 40,000 of them. So we're looking to increase that. So your emails, the title of your email will be car mats for your Ford Focus, not just car mats for you, right? So it's all about delivering to your customer the first time and every time you acquire them, and making sure that the dynamics and the ingredients are there, so that they'll come back again and again.
Do you have the stats on... okay, do you have the stats, because you seem to have the stats, do you have the stats on how much an average customer is worth? Do you have anything like that? Did the average customer...
I do, but I'm not going to share that.
Okay, yeah. Okay. But without sharing the stats, what stats should the guys in the room...
Well, I can break it down to you, right? Every email in our database. So every subscriber in our database, we break it down on average by revenue acquired over that year. So, for example, it's not necessarily about acquiring customers, it's acquiring customers' email addresses as well. Yeah. So, why not do a campaign on Facebook to get customers to subscribe? That might cost you €50, right, to get one subscriber, but break it down on revenue, and that email could be worth €10 to you over the course of the year. So you break it down on a granular level for that. So, and yes, we do watch repeat business rates, et cetera, on that. Yeah.
Okay. Martin?
Just something very small thing to add on that. I think, I might be stating the obvious here, but the importance of getting that customer's email address when they're on your site is vital. Obviously for the reasons that Ciaran mentioned there, but also, it's one of the only sources of traffic that you're in full control of now. Because once they've joined the database, and obviously if it's GDPR compliant, they're on there now, and you have full control over that. Whereas if you're on Google on Facebook in terms of your audiences and all of that, you're at the whim of a big tech corporation, and the rules could change in the morning.
Okay, let's talk about the next big issue, which is supply chain, with the Suez Canal, and retailers all over the country are struggling to get their products in the door. Ciaran, do you want to talk about that? Is there a solution to this?
The Suez Canal seems to be such a small problem such a long time ago, but it was massive for all of us who are waiting for containers to come through it. Yeah, you asked me to think about in the context of the next 12 months. I think it's an incredibly uncertain time. I think the last 2 years have been an absolute gold rush. If you're involved in the e-commerce space, it's been terrific. To some degree, we're seeing a bit of a hangover flatlining from that in the first quarter, which is to be expected. But you look at the challenges that has come into play, and we're still seeing, for us, we're getting significant price increases from our manufacturers every other day. In some cases, we're getting 2 increases within a week. So I think the key for us is that we need to make sure that we're protecting our margin relative to what we want to achieve within our P&L and what we have consistently enjoyed. So it's making sure that when product is coming in the door, exactly what you bake in the landed cost of it. So it's not necessarily just the cost of the product. It's the unit cost of every single item that's coming in the door relative to shipment and duties and everything that required. So when you're selling that product, it's based off a true cost, a landed cost, as we would call it. One of the things we did as a business is is last year, we from year to year, end of December to end of December last year, we increased our stock holding by 60%. Now my accountant was crazy pissed off about that, but in hindsight, it looks like a good bet to some degree. We just need to sell it now, right? But you know, and of course that will have a shelf life, because once that is gone, you know, we have to basically dip back into the markets again. We're seeing order from China. We're still seeing containers being delayed. You're looking at maybe 8 to 9 week turnaround time at the moment. We managed to get a deal from our logistics, which is a container for $11,500 this year, which is great. Last year, I think we paid up to $18,000 on a container coming in. And like, you're seeing price increases across the board. On a local basis, courier firms, I'm sure DPD, we've seen that come through. And I'm waiting for all the firms to bring that in. And quite rightly, they probably should. You know, just given the cost of diesel and the cost of fuel on that.
Are you passing these on to are you upping your own prices?
Yeah, for sure, we are. Yeah, no, we are. You know, we're not in the business to kind of give it away to some degree. You know, we want to enjoy a healthy, happy P&L and keep that set accountant happy.
I think people are expecting it anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you know, like it is to be expected. You know, we try, and when we buy, we try and make sure we buy in volume to deliver, you know, that level of economical pricing to our customers. But ultimately, everything kind of, you know, like that has a shelf life to a great degree, because everything is going up.
Yeah.
And then you think, look at the wider effect of it as well. You know, if prices are increasing, like we're getting prices at anything between 5, 10, 15, 20%, depending on the constituent materials of the product, whether it be rubber, steel, or what have you. And then, you know, you get to a point where, well, will the consumer engage at that price to the level that they have been in the past? And I think that kind of that's probably one of the great unknowns for us this year. You know, will we still get those level of sales across the product ranges within our business? You know, to make it meaningful.
Okay, the next question that's quite topical is that it's hard to recruit people for the website. We start with you, Martin. Do you have any advice on what are the skill sets you're looking for your team? Because people come in, they're multi-skilled.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and how are you going to recruit them in the next 12 months?
You know, I would always be inclined to look within first. And my own experience in the past, you know, it's always more about attitude. And if somebody is already within the business and are displaying, you know, a hunger, and everything else can be taught. You know, I was always a big believer in kind of grow your own flowers, and it always stood me well over the years. And, you know, to anybody else, that'd be my first port of call, because, like, we've all seen people come into businesses, all singing, all dancing, costing a fortune, and they're gone 6 months later.
Yeah.
You know, you're always better, kind of, where possible, obviously, to try to develop your own, because again, that knowledge of the business is there, and there's a bit of loyalty there as well, I find, you know. Should you?
Sorry, Paul. Do you want to?
No, I was just going to say as well. A lot of businesses, you know, I'm looking at some of the CVs that they're looking at for a marketing manager, and it's like, they have to, you know, SEO, they have to know paid social, they have to be web designer, they have to be email specialist, they have, literally, the list goes on and on. You can't expect that from a marketing manager to know absolutely everything, especially when these areas are very technical and people's careers are in just these one little finite things.
For 25,000.
Yeah, for 25,000, exactly. So it's just about being a bit more realistic what you're looking for. If you're looking to hire someone in your marketing team, you need someone just very highly organized, very hungry, and very good organizational skills. But and just be conscious that these are humans and they can't do the job of 20 people. So lean on consultants, lean on you know, other people if you need to.
I think, again, it's just supposed to manage the expectations, really, isn't it?
But some people hire too many people at the start.
Yeah.
And suddenly, because the salaries would be a high cost for the web, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what would you recommend? Would you say somebody was doing 100,000 a year versus somebody who's doing $1 million a year. 100,000 a year, would you be able to survive in just one? Would you need one full-time or one part-time?
Well, like that's a big question. Like, it obviously depends on the business. And like, I'm sure a lot of us in here, small businesses, we're used to doing an awful lot of sales in order to keep the cost down. but if you can assemble that small core of people, they can do, you can do Doric 20. Like.
Yes, fair enough. Ciaran, have you anything to add to that?
I think I probably agree with Martin. When we hire, we always like to hire within if we can. And we always look for people who are smart, curious, and will cop on, and that's it. Like ultimately, you have those three traits, they can pretty much apply themselves to anything. I think it's so difficult. I think when you're at 100k, 200k relative to hire, you're probably too early for that full time of anything. And you're also you can't necessarily get on the specialist role, so you have to kind of go wide on someone who's a generalist. But unfortunately, that generalist day is over when you require specialists to some degree. So it's always a very, very hard challenge. I would say to you that you need to probably take a step back from business and know exactly where your lowest hanging fruit is. So if you do apply someone in the office to look at marketing, making sure that they're focusing on two key points and pushing at that, and not to try and do everything. Because if you spread yourself too thin, you'll be jack of all trades, and ultimately you won't push on that. So you need to just know your business intimately. Where and what product categories can I win, and what are the 1 or 2 or 3 key acquisition tactics that will make sure I get there. And then you basically focus like hell on those and just ignore everything else and the shiny toys that come around that.
Okay. Yeah. What we might do is, if anybody wants to field a question, maybe want to field a question to the guys here. Any questions?
I was just wondering, as a relatively small island, what the guys' views are on the international opportunity in e-commerce?
Yeah, just very quickly, I think there's always opportunity within your product. Nobody probably knows your product better than you, and if there's margin in it, there's always opportunity. It's assuming you can get it off the island relatively cost effectively, and obviously depending on where it's going, and your margin within the product sector. Well, then, I'd probably kick off on Google Shopping and making sure your landing ad is geared towards that region and try and drive it on from there. But again, it's about to a degree knowing exactly what the key drivers are in your business, because what those key drivers are here in Ireland, they will actually probably hold true for many a region. And it's very, very easy to test it these days.
Paul, do you want to go?
Just on that as well. I think it's important for businesses to walk before they run as well, and making sure they're doubling down on the domestic market and getting that right first before you start branching out into different markets and territories. I've seen it go bad, because there was too much of a rush and an emphasis. So taking the time to learn your own market and getting that working right before you start it. Because once you do that, it's very easy to replicate what you've done in Ireland. And look at next door, 64 million people. It's so easy to replicate what you've done and do it in the UK, so long as you know it works and doesn't work already. It's a very similar market, and that's where I usually tell people to go straight away. Now, I know you've definitely got a Brexit question coming here or something, but if that doesn't affect you, I think,
Well, is Brexit still an issue? It was great for a while, but I hear the European websites that got around Brexit and the custom code, so I think it's not as
big as an issue.
It's a major opportunity for us, really.
Yeah, definitely. Right across the pond. If you are looking to do it, I think UK is right for everyone. Same language. There's so many similarities. So, yeah.
What do you think, Martin?
Well, I agree with what was said there, but the big issue is getting off this island and the cost that's the cost of getting it to the customer. What I would say is that I still believe that there's massive opportunity in the domestic market, and I would really put my efforts into making sure you have that dominated, for want of a better word, before looking abroad. There is an awful lot of players in the space, and there's been more in the last couple of years, but
this is the UK?
No, in Ireland even.
In Ireland, yeah. Okay.
Sorry, in Ireland, and and even UK players coming into Ireland, but I do believe that despite the volume of entrants into our market, there's very few of them doing it well.
Yeah.
And I do believe there's still massive opportunity for Irish online retailers and the Irish market still.
Okay.
This is a question for Martin, and I think relevant for our retailers here. As an omni-channel retailer, and with a very definite premium luxury offline space in the store, how do you communicate that brand in your online experience with your website and your digital marketing? What advice would you have for our retailers on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. In terms of the social media and digital marketing end of it, it's no longer good enough to stick up a picture of a nice dress on your Facebook and get, where in the past you might have got 100 likes, whatever. That doesn't fly anymore. It's all about, it's not rocket science. It's about if you have new arrivals into the store, it's about getting somebody talking about it on the video on the shop floor. It can be something as simple as that there. And again, they're seeing the product, they're seeing the person, they're seeing the store all around them. So it's pushing that as well. One of the things, it mightn't be the sexiest thing in the world, when you start talking about Facebook, but people are having great success with Facebook groups. And what that does is, it brings customers and that are already engaged with your business, but turns them into evangelists. And I've seen that now a couple of times working really well for retailers, and I would definitely recommend doing that, especially in the fashion space.
Yeah, no, it's better almost to have 20 people that absolutely love you than a couple of thousand people that just like you. They'll be worth a lot more to you down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they'll spread the word.
I have a very good friend of mine, and he sells tools online. And that's the approach he's taken. Every evening he's up, right, boys, of a new polisher in the store. This is what it does. It's fantastic. He sells 6 of them. Do you know what I mean? Because he's created a community around him of, like-minded people and people that love his business.
Great. Yeah. I'd like to thank you all very much for your contribution.